Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
We're going to be reviewing the INMOTION Climber scooter next on Now Let's Review.
All right, Zach, I'm seeing a scooter that looks a lot like every other scooter. What's different about it?
I don't know what's different about it, but I got 3 words that would sum it up.
Okay.
Fun, budget, commuter.
Okay.
So fun because, well, it's got 2 450 watt motors. Don't be confused when they say they're 750 watts. Technically, they're 450 watts that have peak 750 watt power. So they claim it's a 1500 watt scooter. Well, we've driven 1500 watt scooters and they're way more powerful. So let's just talk the rated power. They're 450s, which is fine. That's great for commuters. That's pretty much all you need as a commuter, I would say. But don't think it's gonna scream like 2 750s would. And so that's why I say it's fun. It's not blast your face off fun, it's just not boring. Commuter, because it doesn't have a huge deck, it has no suspension, so it's not designed to be like super screaming fun afternoon. It's supposed to just get you to work. Commuter. And budget, well, I thought it was $1,000 because that's what it says on their website. But of course, that's not true. It's $699 on their website. If you go to Amazon, it's what, $950. So don't go to Amazon for this. For $699, I think it's right in a Goldilocks zone for what it's doing.
Yeah, I mean, the beginnings of electric scooters, that was kind of the price of the most bare bones scooter you could basically get your hands on. And today, something with peak 1500 watts is pretty nice.
So we tried it out on a bunch of hills because one of their big things is called a climber. And in fact, if you look right there on it, it says,
climb hills with ease. Wow, right?
It does, but it says it can climb a 36-degree slope. We couldn't find any 36-degree slopes, but I don't think so. I think that it's really good at your normal slopes.
Yep.
But don't think that this has so much power that you can just like do San Francisco style.
It's going to be better than your average e-scooter, which is great. I think that, well, if you've ever ridden kind of like a 250 or 350 watt e-scooter, you know that you're cruising along, you're having a great scoot, and then you get to the hill and you start going up and you start going slower and you start going slower and then you have to walk up the hill. You're not going to run into this problem with the climber, and that's really, I think, the selling point, which is that it's going to be able to tackle the hills.
Problem is, for a commuter, sometimes you're going to have a problem like a flat tire. These are pneumatic tires with a tube inside. We've talked about this many times before. That means they will eventually rub and pop. And when that happens, you're not going to fix that on your commute. So when it says 10-minute fix a flat, no. You're not dressed for it, you're not prepared for it, you're not going to do it.
There's nowhere on the scooter is there room for you to have the tubes and the tools for you to fix this in the middle of the road.
It does come with 2 extra tubes, so when you get home in your garage, you can do it. It's called a hamburger style, so basically this is going to come apart and make it easier to change. First of all, I don't think you're going to do it in 10 minutes, especially your first time. But the good news is, if you're worried that, oh my God, what will I do when they do pop? If you're handy, you can fix it. If you're not, you can bring it to a bike shop with your tubes and they'll fix it for you.
That doesn't mean that it's going to be very easy. This is going to be easier than if they weren't kind of the hamburger style or the clamshell or whatever you want to call them. Basically what's going to happen is one side of the wheel is actually going to come off so you can take the tube off and put the next tube on. That is so much easier than a lot of other e-scooters. The only thing is you're still getting your hands dirty. So it's still going to be a lot of work and it's going to be something that you don't want to do. And believe it or not, these tubes pop way more frequently than you might think.
Now, if you want to reduce that from happening, don't go so fast. Don't accelerate all the time. So there's 3 different speed settings. There's pedestrian, normal, and sport. If you're in sport, it's a lot more fun to get to work, but you'll just be wearing out the inner tube a lot faster. So just
I don't think there's anything you can do to prevent these from popping. They will pop. It will be a pain because you're going to be out somewhere with this 50-odd pound scooter and you're going to have to walk it all the way to work and maybe up those hills you didn't want to do.
And talking about that, it is a 46-pound scooter, so it's not light.
No.
Now it does fold, which is cool. Why don't you demonstrate the folding?
Sure. Folding, pretty darn good in terms of folding mechanism. The other thing I will say is this little clicky bit does make for an interesting fold. A lot of times they won't have, this will just be able to kind of like be wherever, but because they have it click in and out, It means that you're not going to lose your clip quite as frequently as on many of the other scooters. So I do really like that piece.
But at 46 pounds, it depends on how fit you are in terms of getting it in and out of a trunk or on and off a train.
It's heavy. It's not that light. You can carry it. It's a lot harder to carry when you're like putting it out in front of you,
and these don't fold. The handlebars don't fold, so it means that this is a limiting factor in terms of putting it into your trunk and stuff.
I will also say something about the shape of e-scooters makes them really hard to fit into vehicles.
It's true. There's a 533 watt-hour battery in here, so not huge, which means that your range, they claim, would be 35 miles. I think that's rosy. I think that would only be if you were using very low speeds and kicking off all the time.
And not going up any hills.
Right, yeah, it drains the battery fast.
Yes, it does.
This scooter is always a kickoff scooter. There's pros and cons to that. That means that you're gonna use a little less of your battery because that initial boost comes from you. And it means you're less likely to do something dumb with the throttle and throw yourself off. But it does mean that you're gonna have to kick every single time.
It also means that if you're especially going uphill, it can be hard to get enough speed because you have to get going like 2 or 3 miles an hour for the motor to kick in. And if you're going up a very steep incline, like say, I don't know, like a 30% incline, which they claim you can do, it's gonna be hard to get started. The other thing that I noticed was that while these motors claim to be 1500 watts, you have to know where you're getting that 1500 watts in terms of how fast the motor is spinning. At basically no miles an hour, these motors are going to bog down on very steep inclines. And so while they might be able to go up at speed, they're not going to be able to give you that power at 0.
Good point. There's a headlight up high, which is really nice, but there's a very weak brake light back here. And so just be alert that you're not gonna be super visible on the road. I thought that the deck was a little small for my big feet, and I like to be able to put my foot back here, but you're not really supposed to put your foot back here. So just be aware that you're gonna have to find places to keep your feet.
I don't really like rubber decks. When they get wet, they tend to get a little bit slippery, and depending on the shoes that you're wearing, your feet might slip off if you're doing something crazy.
I also noticed that on ours, for instance, there's how they mounted it, and like I'm just peeling that off.
Don't break it.
And so it just shows that like it's not super well adhered, and so as things get wet, it's probably going to fail on you.
As they get wet and dusty and hot and cold, it can get pretty bad.
When I'm looking at scooters, one of the things I'm looking for, once I get into the 700 and above price range, is suspension. There is no suspension on this. Doesn't mean you can't be a commuter scooter, but it does mean that, come on, you're gonna hit some potholes, you're gonna hit some curbs, and you're gonna feel them on this scooter. So just be aware of that. If your ride is gonna be smooth sailing, great. The charge time on this scooter was extraordinarily high. It's 8.5 hours. And as a commuter scooter, that's not good because unless you work 8.55 hours, and I know that's probably 0 to 100%, but that means that you can't really rely on it charging up at work that much. It should be more of like a 4-hour or 6-hour charge time.
This all comes down to the charger that they give you. And it's like the least exciting part of the entire scooter because you're not even seeing it here. It looks like a laptop charger, comes with every e-scooter, and it's gonna have a number on there. It's gonna either be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amps. Most of the time, unfortunately, it's a 1 amp charger, which is cheaper, and that's why you're stuck with the charging time, which is not something that normally people are thinking about. But this is something you might want to consider if you have a very long commute or one with a lot of hills.
Comes really well boxed, which is really nice. The directions are all there. We put millions of these together. I will point out that when you slide this piece into the stock here, there's 4 screws that you are supposed to tighten on, and one of our 4 screws had basically a stripped thread, and so we only were able to get 3 of the 4. I can't say that that's going to be true of all of them. I'm just pointing out that in our case, we didn't have a perfectly smooth sailing in putting it together. You got your thumb throttle on the right. You have a bell on the left, and you only have 1 brake lever. This brake lever, if you follow the orange, goes back here to a caliper, and it also has the motors brake for you. I just wasn't that impressed with the braking. What did you think?
I'm gonna play it both sides. On the good side, the braking isn't too strong. It's not going to throw you over the handlebars if you squeeze on the brake too hard. Good. Here's the bad. The braking distance is too far. Having only 1 brake on the rear wheel means that you can easily lock up that rear wheel, which means that now that is slipping and sliding all over the place when you're trying to stop, and you're not going to slow down that fast because all of the actual pressure is being put on the front wheel, and that wheel is not braking very hard because it doesn't have a rotor on it. Again, you could say, oh, but I'm not going to flip over the handlebars. Yeah, you'll just slam into the thing that you were trying not to slam into.
So essentially, you agreed with me. The braking.
I don't like the brakes.
Yeah.
They're weak.
Yeah. So don't play both sides. They need better brakes.
But if you're like, oh, but I suck at, I don't
No,
have
then don't
any
ride a scooter.
control
No.
over my body.
No.
Don't ride a scooter, but great, I guess you won't flip over the handlebars. The last thing I'll say about the handlebars is pretty decent grips and also really nice and bright turn signals. The only downside with the turn signal is that you can't shut them off. They just have a timeout.
Right.
Which is also good because I always forget to shut off my turn signals on anything that's on two wheels because it's not a stock or anything that kind of shuts off after you're done turning. It's something you always normally have to remember to shut off. So I think it's actually a good system.
Your first couple rides, you're gonna hit the button by accident or the wrong button, and you're gonna wish you could just quickly turn it off, and you just can't. It takes a few seconds before it turns off.
But I will say that these are the best turn signals on any device that we have tested on Now Let's Review.
Here's my big con here. It's the app. In order to activate what they call this system, so in order to turn it on when you first get it, you have to download their app. This app, the INMOTION app, only gets 2.2 stars on Google Play Store, so nobody likes it.
There's a reason for that.
This is after they fixed a bunch of problems. So then you've got a Bluetooth into this, which for us took about 10 minutes because it took 7 attempts. Then even once
11. It took 11 and you had to restart your phone.
Right. Then once we got that far though, we still weren't done. It saw it, but then we still had to talk to it, and that took multiple attempts.
Yes.
So the whole process took us about 20 minutes, and it was harrowing because you're like, am I not gonna be able to ride this thing?
I know.
So once you do all that, if you do all that successfully, because it has to send you a code and all other stuff, once you finally do that, you go, oh my God, do I have to bring this with me all the time? No, you've activated it. So now it's a scooter. I just don't understand the point. I think it was for legal reasons that like they put a bunch of warnings and stuff like that. I would just rather do it some other way, because what if you have problems with your phone or Bluetooth or whatever, then you can't activate it.
This was one of the only e-mobility devices that would not start, would not move unless you activated it with a phone app. Every single other e-bike, e-scooter that we've tested, out of the box, you can turn it on and get it going. Now, maybe you can't unlock the full speed, or maybe you can't unlock some amazing features without their stupid app. And it's always a stupid app, may I just say. We've never tested a single e-mobility device and the app is amazing. That's never, ever happened. This app is worse than average, and you need it to actually, you're like, I'm so excited to go riding on my scooter, and then it's like, here's your activation code.
You only have 60 seconds to put it in, by the way.
From your email.
Right.
Come on.
That
It
was
puts
like
such a bad taste in our mouth, I'll be honest.
Yeah. So I got to say, pros and cons weren't a lot of pros, other than it's got enough power to be a good commuter. The cons were that whole app thing and the fact that it's tube tires. I think that's going to cause you problems down the road. I'd rather see this be just solid tires. Even though the ride will be worse, at least one less thing to worry about.
Especially for a commuting scooter, this is going to be the Achilles heel. They do sell replaceable solid tires, so once you pop maybe your first one.
Look, there's so many scooters to choose from. Get the one, and like, we've reviewed a lot, so I would just say, like, that's why you come to Zach and Jesse. Right. We're not going to lie to you.
Either get solid tires, solid rubber, or get tubeless tires. You might be going like, well then what holds the air in? It's going to be just like a car tire. When was the last time your car tire went flat, aside from you running over a nail? Never. They don't really go flat. And that's the nice part about radial tires or tubeless tires.
I guess I would say watch our video on sliming your tires if you're going to get something like this that has tubes, because it might save you. I can't promise it will, but it might save you if you have a problem. Or bring a can of Fix-A-Flat with you. But again, you're a commuter, so now you have to bring an extra thing with you. That's kind of dumb.
For the price, I think this is fair, especially for the power that you're getting. But just know that all you're really paying for is the added power, and nothing else is really upgraded beyond a very basic e-scooter. And that's our review. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave some comments down below if you think that maybe the app thing put too bad a taste in our mouth.
Or maybe you've got this scooter and you want to tell us the things that you like or don't like about it as well. That's really helpful. And also just give things that help others out there. If you've gotten some scooters and you have some things that you like and don't like, that really is helpful to us as well. So let us know things you want us to review. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Now Let's Review.